In today's video, we look at one of the most gruesome bear attacks to ever take place. A hungry bear desperate for food who ate an unexpected man alive while backpacking in Alaska. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying bear attack on Alan Precup. Welcome to Final Affliction. Glacier Bay National Park is a 3.3 million acre park found in southeast Alaska and can only be reached by plane or boat as it is surrounded by an extreme landscape. With icy mountain peaks, deep glacial fjords, and a rich abundance of wildlife, the park attracts over 500,000 visitors each year. The American government has even described it as one of the few places left on Earth that offers human solitude in a remote wilderness, leading it to becoming one of the hotspots for campers and survivalists to prove just how good their skills really are. The lush green forests offer cover from the biting cold, and although rugged and remote, its beauty is hard to dispute. In addition to lynx, mountain lions, coyotes, and wolves, there are also two different species of bears present in this park: the brown and black bears. Although usually docile, changing climate conditions have taken their toll on these predators, and sometimes, out of desperation due to their starvation, they can even attack and eat humans. On September 10, 1976, 25-year-old Alan Precup had arranged to travel to the Glacier Bay National Park and was planning to camp for a few days with just a backpack containing everything he needed. He had planned his travel route and was aware of the remoteness of his trip, meaning that if anything went wrong, he knew that he would be all on his own. Despite this, he felt confident in his ability to survive and headed out into the woods. Unfortunately for Alan, this would be the last anyone ever saw of him. A few days later, on September 13th, a search party was formed. Alan hadn't returned back to the base that he had previously agreed, and the officials were becoming concerned. They arranged for a large group to scour the area in hopes that he may have just gotten lost or fallen somewhere awaiting help. The search continued for days, and still no one was able to locate Alan. While the search party was still underway, another group was hiking into the White Thunder Ridge near the Muir Inlet, and while they were not actively looking for Alan, they were aware of this situation and had agreed to keep an eye out just in case. Although they were only planning to stay for one night, they already felt more comfortable with their journey knowing that there are search crews in the areas, so if they fell into any trouble, it would be much easier to get help than normal. The group included a small group of friends: Charles Jackson, Lilena Vega, Peter Talbot, and Colin Milmer. They were avid hikers and were keen to begin their latest journey. As they were setting up camp, they were slowly relaxing into their new surroundings and felt at peace. The quiet of the surrounding glaciers creating a kind of soundproofing effect like a fishbowl. At around 11:30 a.m., Peter noticed something far off in the distance that was moving very slowly towards them. Given the distance, he couldn't quite make out what the animal was, but he could see it was large and brown. Maybe a caribou? He continued to watch it, and his friends now joined him, curious as to what the animal would turn out to be. As they kept watch, they realized that it was a small brown bear, and while they were excited to see the animal in its natural habitat, they also knew that they should stop it from getting much closer to fully reduce any risk. They began to make lots of noise, using pots and pans to scare off the animal, yelling at it so that it would soon change its direction back into the trees. This seemed to confuse the bear instead of scare it away. It could hear the clangs in the distance, but didn't know where it was coming from. After stopping for a few seconds, he slowly continued towards the group. They decided that it would be best to pack up their food and move to higher ground until the bear leaves, hoping that the extra rock cover would mean that the bear would not bother them. After some time, they reached the top of the cliff's peak and were able to see their camp below them, now being viciously ripped apart by the bear. They could hear the animal's grunts and snarls from below and were startled by its unprovoked aggression as it tore into anything with the scent of a human upon it. They watched in horror as the bear began to sniff the floor and follow the path that they had just taken into the cliffs. It was becoming clear that the animal was hunting for them and was determined to find and kill them. They immediately decided that they needed to create more space between themselves and the predator, leaving their food stash behind in hopes that the animal was just hunting for food and would be satiated enough to leave them alone. Their blood ran cold when the bear continued past the food, ignoring it in the hope of a better prize, someone from the group. They realized that the bear was determined to get a human meal, so they continued into the cliffs, hoping to find some form of protection as the animal was hot on their trail. Following their scent for miles, they circled back to their camp, hoping that they had lost the animal in its confusion, but it was still following them. The group started to panic as they realized that the bear was not giving up, as it had been following them for nearly 2 hours now with no sign of stopping. They knew that they had no time to rest, that the bear would be upon them soon. They continued upwards again, adrenaline forcing them to keep moving as they went back up into the cliffs again, stripping off their clothing to cool themselves down, as well as hopefully slow the bear down. They hoped that if they left their clothes, the bear would stop to destroy them rather than continue to follow them, but no luck. Now the approaching bear was only 20 feet apart from them, their scent only encouraging the bear further as it knew it was close to its next meal. When they reached the top of the hill, the bear had gained on them even further, and now only 10 feet separated them from certain death. They began to realize that their only hope was going to be to fight this animal, as it was not giving up until it had killed someone. They began to throw rocks at the bear, who was seemingly confused by the attacks, so moved further away, then lay down to observe them, never taking its eye off of its prize. Suddenly, a plane flew overhead. Although it circled them many times, they were not spotted, and so they were still as vulnerable as before. They decided to use the cover of the plane to venture back down the hill, hoping that the bear would not notice and so would not follow. They just needed to get back to other people, to safety. Luckily, they made it back down and encountered some other campers in the area. As they explained their ordeal and the strange behavior of the bear, the group witnessed the bear appear at the crest of the hill, sniffing the air in search of them. They all decided to run to put as much distance between themselves and this murderous bear. After some time, they arrived back at the Forest Service boat, where they were able to tell their story to the rangers nearby. They recognized that this bear was exhibiting very strange behavior, as they knew it would not usually specifically hunt for humans, unless it had eaten human flesh before. This disturbing realization made the rangers finally understand what had happened to poor Alan Precup. They set off in their helicopter, praying that they were wrong, but knowing in their hearts what had happened. After the rangers scoured the area once again, they finally came across the gruesome remains of Alan. Only a few days had passed, but it was clear that the bear had finished his meal. His bones were stripped clean and gleamed in the sunlight, his ribcage destroyed by the animal. Parts of Alan were found all over the camp. His arms had been torn from his body, only leaving exposed bones in the ground. His legs and feet, though completely removed from his body, were still encased in his socks and boots, an unnerving reminder that his pile of blood and bones was a living person just a few days before. It's unknown as to how quickly Alan would have died, although we would hope that he was killed by the initial bite to the neck and head, which severed the bones and left him decapitated. We would hope that this is how he met his end, but even if this were true, his last moments would have been terrifying. If the bear attacked him somewhere else, maybe slamming into him and pushing him to the ground where he slowly began to eat the flesh from his bones, this would be a much more horrific way to die, and is hardly worth thinking about when you imagine the true horror of the entire experience. The rangers were able to gather up Alan's remains and return them to his family, but with very little flesh left on his corpse, the family had to bury him in a closed casket. A reminder to all those in attendance of the horrible events that took place leading up to his final affliction.